Hey everybody, hope this finds you doing well. As you can see here, we have the Bitcoin white paper, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. And if you look at the abstract, it says a purely peer-to-peer version of electronic cash would allow online payments to be sent directly from one party to another without going through a financial institution. So if we learn a little bit more about Bitcoin and money, and why Bitcoin is becoming more and more popular and is building up in demand, not only with retail investors like you and me, but also Wall Street is taking notice. Wall Street is now getting in, as we can see with the Bitcoin ETFs, which have done very well. There's a lot of people who have different perspectives as to why they invest into Bitcoin. One of those is the fact that fiat currency, which are like the United States dollars, the Brazilian real, the Chinese yen, the euro, fiat money is a type of currency that is not backed by a precious metal such as gold or silver, or backed by any other tangible asset or commodity. Fiat currency is typically designated by the issuing government to be legal tender and is authorized by a government regulation. So in the United States, we have the Federal Reserve, and we've mentioned them in numerous videos. They recently decided to cut the interest rates, which basically affect how much it costs to borrow money. The interest rates have now been cut by 50 basis points. So in that, a lot of people believe that other assets like Bitcoin, which is a finite store of value, a finite currency. There's only going to be 21 million. It's not backed or authorized by any government entity, any governmental entity or sovereign nation. And so a lot of people are looking at Bitcoin as a store of value against fiat currencies, which continue to be inflated. We've had inflation year over year. People say the average is 2%. Obviously, a lot of us can see that it's a lot more than that when you just go to the grocery store just to buy everyday items. Things are a lot more expensive than they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and some of them at a much higher rate than 2% per year. So we're looking for opportunities and investments that will provide more than that 2% inflation, particularly since the governmental entities around the world also tend to provide more liquidity into the market by adding more of the fiat currencies into the market. We just heard about China is going to be injecting a ton of liquidity into their markets, and so that could be freeing up more cash to be put into investments like cryptocurrencies. If we do a quick look at the cryptocurrency market, and you can see here at the time of recording, Bitcoin is currently trading at 62,000, so we're still in that $60,000 to $70,000 range. It had gone up to around 66,000 a week or so ago. You can see it's pulled back a bit over the last 7 days, now down 5%. And the rest of the cryptocurrencies in the top 10 have also seen a bit of a downturn in the past 7 days. So we'll keep looking to see what's going to happen with the cryptocurrency markets, particularly with Bitcoin, going into the end of 2025, now that we're beginning at the quarter 4 of 2024. And so if we go back to fiat currencies and what is M2 supply, so what we're seeing here is that the amount of money that is circulating in the U.S. markets, this is just the M2 in the United States, you can see, well, actually, let's look at the definition of M2. So M2 is a classification of money supply. It includes M1, which is comprised of cash outside of the private banking system, plus current account deposits, while also including capital in savings accounts, money market accounts, and retail mutual funds, and time deposits of under $100,000. So that's M1. M2 is a broader classification than M1 because it also includes assets which are still highly liquid but that are not exclusively cash. So M2 is mostly used as a classification for money supply in the Eurozone and America. In the UK, the official designations are limited to M0 and M4. So if we look at the M2 supply, which is basically the amount of money that is out circulating, and it also includes money that is in money market accounts, for example, and savings accounts. So what we are looking at is the fact that over the last, let's just say, 60 years, the M2 has increased by billions and billions of dollars, now trillions of dollars, I should say. And so we are now looking at it up, moving up towards the highest amount of circulation that has ever been out in the history of the US dollar. So you can see here, as of August 2024, there's approximately $21 trillion that are out in the circulating supply. And you see how much has been added just since 2020. So with that, and the fact that the governments, particularly here in the United States, is adding to the liquidity, and also in China, for example, more people will have a little bit more money, or at least it will be seeming as if they have more money in their accounts, especially with the interest rates starting to go down. So with that, people will be looking to try to combat the inflation that I mentioned earlier, so they can have more purchasing power. So if we look at Bitcoin and we see what it has done against the US dollar just in the last 5 years, Bitcoin is going at a much higher rate compared to the US dollar. So you can see here, in 2019, it was under $10,000, and now it has done basically a 6x, over 600%, 500%, I should say, now in September of 2024, or October now of 2024. So we're seeing that Bitcoin is continuing to, even though you see this volatility, obviously we had all-time highs, it started to come back down, and then over the next several years, it went back to under $20,000. But since 2022, we see that Bitcoin has now risen back to that $60,000 range, and we did reach all-time highs earlier in 2024. So we're looking to see if at some point we'll break out of this range and get above 70,000 and continue to what could be a much higher leg up going into this bull run. So as we're learning about the money supply and how much money is actually out circulating and what people are trying to do when it comes to holding value of their US dollars, finding something that can store the value of their US dollars or other cryptocurrency, or other currencies, I should say, around the world. They're looking to other risk on assets. People look at stocks, for example. That's obviously extremely popular when it comes to tech stocks, which have done very well against the US dollar when you look at the Magnificent Seven. So you see here in this chart, we're looking at the global liquidity, and this is all of the M2 that is out in the world. You can see here that against Bitcoin, when you look at how it continues to go up, the money supply continues to go up, it is pretty much what is happening with Bitcoin. As the M2 supply continues to go up, the price of Bitcoin continues to follow along with it. Whenever there has been a little bit of dip in the M2 supply, you can see that Bitcoin started to have a little bit of a dip. So if we're starting to see that this M2 supply is back on an upward trend, then most likely, if we look at history, obviously it's not an indication of future performance, but we can look at it as just a potential barometer, or just something that we can look at that could potentially happen in the future, since this is starting to look like it's heading back on the uptrend, or it is actually on the uptrend. It's not even heading, it is on the uptrend. You can see that Bitcoin could potentially continue to also be on an upward trend, even though we've been in this kind of accumulation range for most of 2024. It could be just a matter of time before it starts to go on another major run, like we've seen here in years past. Every 4 or so years of the Bitcoin cycle, you see here that we have major run-ups into all-time highs. So this is just something to get you thinking about money a little bit more, and why it is important to have an understanding of the difference between Bitcoin as a decentralized finite product, a decentralized finite asset that can be that can't be controlled by any governmental agency or entity, compared to fiat currencies, which can be controlled and regulated by a governmental entity. So if you look here at the spot Bitcoin ETF volumes, you're seeing that we're still having some steady volume basically since it came out in January of 2024. Obviously, nothing compared to what it was in March of 2024, but we're seeing that we are staying in that steady range of multi-billion-dollar days and weeks that these Bitcoin ETFs are gobbling up Bitcoin, and it's coming and they're gobbling up Bitcoin at a much higher rate than what we are seeing when Bitcoin is being mined on a daily basis. There's only approximately 450 Bitcoin that are mined every day. And these Bitcoin, just the Bitcoin ETFs, not even considering what retail, private companies like MicroStrategy and Similar Scientific and some of the other companies that are also adding to their Bitcoin stash, not even considering them, the Bitcoin ETF just on its own are gobbling up and accumulating much more than the 450 Bitcoin issuance per day. So this is a reason why we believe that Bitcoin could potentially continue to go up in price, especially given the global economic landscape and what's happening with fiat currencies. Also, make sure, as usual, to check us out on Networkchain. Nearly every day we post on IG as well as X, so we'll keep you a little bit more posted on the daily happenings in the cryptocurrency and emerging market space. And before we head out, we'll just talk about a quick story from the past week. Is that Bitwise, which already has a Bitcoin and Ethereum ETF, now has filed with the SEC an XRP ETF. So we know that Wall Street is looking at other cryptocurrencies, not just Bitcoin. Solana ETFs, the first Solana ETFs have been filed with the SEC. There's 2 of them that are currently outstanding. Now we have an XRP ETF that has been filed. It obviously remains to be seen whether or not those will be approved by the SEC, particularly given some of the lawsuits that the SEC has filed against exchanges and brokers, claiming that some of these cryptocurrencies, including Solana, are securities. So if that is the case, we could see a while before another cryptocurrency ETF is released on the public markets. Obviously, time will tell, but as usual, continue to keep up with us on X as well as IG. We appreciate you watching us here on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching. We look forward to linking up with you soon on the Network Chain. Bye-bye.